Hello, and welcome back
Hello.
to Yappily Ever After. Today's a very special episode because we are doing a deep dive into the intersection of technology and design with a guest who is truly redefining how we visualize one of our biggest moments, the wedding day. She is a former marketing powerhouse who traded corporate world to solve a problem that I think we've all felt, which is the gap between the mood board and the reality of bringing the mood board to life. After leaving the world of biotech and diving into the world of event planning, she launched Gia, an AI-powered platform that turns the chaotic vibes into stunning visuals instantly. She's here to help us stop pinning and praying, as she likes to say, and start planning with absolute clarity. And I'm very excited for our conversation. So please welcome the founder and CEO of Gia, Natasha Yuhjtman. Hello.
Thank Hello, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, and I love being on the other side in the guest seat and doing this with you. So thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I love how parallel our stories are because, you're in the world, you're doing other things outside the wedding world, getting experience, and then identifying a problem and figuring out, there's legs to this problem and I might be the one to solve it. I'm really curious for you to describe what was that light bulb moment for you when you realized not only is this a problem, but I might be the one who should go and attack it.
Yeah, I think for me it was a series of moments, but they really built up on one another and I think that's also a testament to how big this problem potentially was at the time. But when I started in 2019 is kind of where this story all began. It was a moment when we were planning our own wedding. My husband and I, or my fiance at the time, now husband, were planning our own wedding, and our planner um, parted ways with us 3 months before the wedding. And at that point, we had no vendors booked and nothing in place. We were doing what you would classify as, somewhat well luxury, larger wedding. We had 120 something people flying out to Napa Valley at the time. And I was looking down the barrel of how the heck do I pull this thing together in a matter of months, which is something you'd normally give yourself, a year plus time to do. So I was just having moments of panic. And I remember I was flying to a business trip at that time. I was working in biotech. I was flying to a business trip. I was in the airport and we had just lost our planner. And I was like frantically, just hyperventilating, waiting for my flight and like emailing every other planner I could find under the sun. And I realized in that moment the thing that I realized in that moment was that you know, why is there not better tools for me to find another path? So why is the only way for me to get this thing done is to pay another arm and leg to a planner? I'm like, why do I not have other means to get this done or find the resources that I need? So I lived the problem from the consumer side. But then once we got through the wedding, I really wanted to live the problem through the side of the planner. I wanted to understand, like, are the planners set up for success? Like, what's the problem on the other side of the coin? Like, why did this happen? And what's the problem on the other side of the coin? Let me put myself in the shoes of, the vendor and the planner and the service person, and the creative partner to understand that side before I start building anything. I was doing it though with always having in the back of my mind that I wanted to build and I wanted to solve and I wanted to build a solution in this space. But I first stepped into the shoes of a planner so that I could kind of do my own, like, I like to call it like my market research phase, and really understand like their perspective and what tools do they have? Are they set up for success? And what I found was there weren't a lot of tools for them either. And they truly weren't set up to manage so many events at a time. And there was no way for them to like kind of make the customer or the client feel like the only person in that moment or the only one in the room, because they were juggling so much and the tools that they had at their fingertips were really not setting them up for success in those moments. So I realized that the problem was actually a lot bigger.
Yeah, that's such a unique path of seeing the problem, but then actually wanting to step back and get direct experience, feeling the pain. You were almost, I sense there's pain. I want to feel it even more so I can really understand it. How did you have the patience to insert that not little, it was multiple years of really being like in the weeds and on the front lines of that? Were you like chomping at the bit to be building in the background, or did you maybe halfway through decide to build, or how did your patience kind of weave in to that timeline?
Yeah, I think for me, truly, it was a matter of like, how do I build up the relationships that I need and the credibility that I want to have before I build? And
Mhm.
I felt that I quickly learned, and I think anybody that knows the space this would resonate with. It's a relationship space. Like this space is very built on relationships, and I really needed to build the relationships in this industry in order to have hope of building anything at all.
Mhm.
And I just knew that I lacked that credibility. So for me, I was always in the mindset of like, I'm in this for the long game. This is a space that I felt called to solve for, that I was so passionate about. It also acted as a creative outlet selfishly for me in a time where I was in the corporate world. I was feeling super drained and just energetically like not aligned with what I was doing in my corporate job, but during the day. And I was having two kids during that time. It was
Mhm.
COVID. And I was just finding that like steeping myself into this industry was almost like a creative outlet. And like I was finding so much joy in it in a time that felt really difficult, to be honest. And I think that's actually what draws a lot of people to this industry. It's the creative aspect of it. It's the creative element
Mhm.
to it, and it's the fact that we're putting all this work in ultimately towards a day that brings like the closest people in your lives together to celebrate what oftentimes is like the most joyous moments in your lifetime. And like that alone, like the principle of that and the values of this space is like what kept me going. And I found joy in that personally and selfishly as well.
Mhm. What were some of the most surprising things during that time that maybe you could not have expected to know, having not been, like, really, really in the weeds? What were some of the most surprising things for you?
I think the most surprising things were how well, a couple things come to mind. How not just quick and easy it is to build up clientele and that like loyal customer base,
Mhm.
because a lot of it again is based on relationships. Those relationships turn into referrals. And as a young planner and a new planner, it can be really hard to kind of get that flywheel going. And you truly have to have like the guts and the inner like motivation to just like put yourself out there and believe you can do it before you even know that you can do it. Like for me, I had never planned a large scale event other than my own wedding day. And to then do that for somebody else felt so crazy and so different, but there had to be a first that I just threw myself into, because that first then led to a second and a third. But it could be really scary and really hard to get that first, and also to just throw yourself into it without feeling like you're not ready, or, feeling like you can't do it. Like you just have to talk yourself up and say, I can do it. I got this. I did it I did it for myself or whatever the case is. Like there's no reason that I can't handle this.
Mhm.
And it can feel intimidating, but you just got to do it. I also made sure that I was building relationships with planners that I admired and truly finding people that like I aspired to be like. I was, trying to assist or do any freelance work on the weekends. It did mean I was working on the weekends, but I was like doing any sort of freelance work. If a planner needed help during a wedding weekend, I would be up in Napa Valley helping. And it gave me the ability then from there to also say, well, if you have any clients that you're turning away, or if there's any other help that you need, I'm here, I'm available. I want to learn. I want to start doing this.
When you were jumping in from your pivot away from the corporate world, what were some of those common threads in your own kind of superpower toolbox that you felt like you relied on the most and that you feel like have really taken you even through all these seemingly very different, positions or roles? I'm sure there are common threads you felt like were really helpful along the way. What were some of those that came to mind for you over the years?
Yes, I would say the biggest one is navigating ambiguity. And it's something that has stuck with me from when I literally was like just completing graduate school and interviewing interviewing for a rotational program at the biotech company that I was at previously. And the question they asked me was, how do you navigate ambiguity? And at the time I had no idea, because I had few instances where I had to do it. But
Mhm.
I was able to land that role, and they threw me into a rotational program for 2 years where there was little to none training and, very little support. And that was like my first foray into like, you just got to figure it out. And that's been the like through thread through everything that I have done. And both in the corporate world, then trying to figure out how to like call myself a planner and get clients and actually execute and plan events. How do I build relationships in this space? How do I literally pivot and go into a space that I have no connections and no experience in? That in itself was navigating an ambiguity. And even now, building Gia, I jumped into this as a non-technical founder, first time founder. And there was so much that I didn't know that I wish people had told me before I jumped into it, but like so many things that I was just learning along the way. But I think just having this fearlessness of like, okay, it's going to be ambiguous. It's going to require me to just like swim through this water and not know if I'm turning left or right or which way I'm going up or down, but like I will figure it out. And I now have trust in myself that like I know that I can figure it out, even if I'm given like a blank slate, but I'm given like a blank slate. You have to go from point A to point B, but it's a blank slate in between. Like I will figure out how to get there. And I think
Yeah.
that's just been the common thread that I've taken from corporate till now.
Yeah, that's such an important skill as a founder or just in the startup world in general, because so many things you're not asking the question, how has this been done in the age old way? Because you're intentionally trailblazing, going a new way, innovating something new, creating a whole new way to do something in the context of something that's been done time and time again, which is such an interesting facet of working in the wedding world where both of our companies and products are really trying to take inspiration from how things have been done and then take it to the next level and just it's all trailblazing and that ambiguity and the confidence to like it's figure outable. We can forge ahead even if we don't know. That's such an important skill.
I couldn't agree more. And I think like it is a balance between like, don't reinvent the wheel if there is a
Mhm.
blueprint there that you can lean on, but at the same time, take a fresh perspective on the approach because just because it's been done 10 times before does not mean that that was the right time or that was the right way and that there's maybe not a better way to do it. I think especially now in the age of AI, there is so many various paths to get to the same outcome, and you can truly find the path that works best for you or for the outcome that you're trying to get to, and it doesn't have to be the way that somebody else got there or the way that somebody else may have done it in the past.
Yeah, and speaking of Gia, I love the names of so many of your features like Vibe Matcher, Reality Check. I'm curious for you to tell us how some of these features are getting couples and pros to really bring their vision to life, and maybe some of your favorite ones you can kind of describe and tell us how they're helping people.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a couple features. We actually just had one of our biggest releases to date, and we initially launched with the Vibe Studio, so you can vibe check any venue. We like to say if you are walking into a venue, it normally doesn't have the vibe that
Mhm.
you or if you're a planner, your client wants, and so you can completely transform that space into the vibe that aligns with the design or the client's vibe.
Mhm.
And the reason we started there was because twofold. One, visualization is truly what I believe is the first step to planning. You can't plan if you don't have a visual blueprint. And a visual blueprint is what we can now create for consumers and
Mhm.
planners that are building an event together. And the other thing is people can't envision potential. So it's really hard for people to oftentimes, unless you have a trained eye, it's really hard for people to walk into a space and visualize the potential of that space. Potential
Mhm.
of a space is really, really difficult. There are so many permutations of what you can do with a space. There's so many different things that you can change and kind of create within four walls or even just an outside space. So unless you have a trained eye, it becomes really difficult. And even sometimes with a trained eye, you don't know what permutations you can create until you have sort of that creative engine fueling you. And so that's why we started with the overall Vibe Studio so that you could vibe check any space, see the potential within minutes. And then beyond that, we are also, we just released and just launched the ability to build out flat lays for the table setting, so you can build isolated visuals for just the tablescape, and also floral visualization. We really wanted to go from kind of like macro visualization to micro moments, and then
Mhm.
pulling all those things together so that you have a full, you know, what we would then create into a mood board. Um, but because a room alone doesn't show the detailed work, right? And the detailed work in this industry is so, so important. So we wanted to create the room, we wanted to create the vibe in the space, and then we want to be able to have users create the table setting, the tablescape, build that, and then build also on top of that any floral moments and floral visualizations. We have a lot more to come. There's a lot more visualization around those details that we are going to be rolling out, but that's what we've started and what we just released. The other thing that I would say is there is a huge difference between, creating images on generic AI engines like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, and what
Mhm.
we're doing at Gia is really the ability of creating images based in reality and accuracy, which with the
Yeah.
understanding of what are the parameters of the venue, what are the parameters of the design and the signature style that you're trying to go for, and then blending those together along with the bride or the couple's, aesthetic, so that you can show a visual that's not, doesn't have holes in the ceiling, but it's a realistic, accurate visual that somebody can react to and say, this is what we can actually do in this space. Do you like it or do you not? And what about this do you want to change?
Yeah, the visual aspect is so important, like you're saying, where you might walk into a hotel ballroom or a more minimalistic industrial space, and you've seen maybe a photo from a past event, but it might not have been your exact style, and trying to like bridge the gap between your amazing Pinterest board, which is really just living in a vacuum, and then your actual venue. And then you're also, your budget is in the mix and you have the vision, but it has to be realistic for you. It's so many factors, especially when you may or may not have a professional helping to guide you, but even to communicate your vision to the professional, you have to have a common language and ground to be standing on. So,
Exactly. And we truly have seen like creating visuals helps alignment happen faster. There's no confusion. There's no misunderstandings on like, what is this going to look like? What's the size of this arrangement going to be when I say I want a medium arrangement because that's what fits my budget, right? And
yeah.
it allows both the planner and the couple to make decisions a lot faster. So the time to decide shortens, and any sort of confusion or misunderstandings or disappointment reduces because people are no longer surprised. I remember on my wedding day, and I'm sure so many couples of brides can relate to this. While I selected everything and I knew what I had purchased and I knew the pieces that were going to be there, I
Mhm.
still had to imagine what that was all going to look like together.
Yeah.
I still didn't know what the room was going to look like when I walked in. Truly, I didn't know what the plates were going to look like with the linen that I had
Yeah.
selected. I didn't know what the chairs were gonna look like. I didn't know what the dance floor color was gonna. I remember going back and forth forever on the dance floor color. I was like, do I do, light wood or do I do a white dance floor? I don't know. And I literally closed my eyes and was like, this one, because I didn't know what it was gonna look like. And I was just praying that on the day of when I walk in, it's gonna look good. I mean, I trusted that like, the taste and whatever and people that were guiding me along the way, but like it's really disheartening to feel like you are going to be surprised on the day of when you're spending that amount of money and that much time in one single day and not knowing confidently that like when you walk into that room it's going to look exactly like what you had in your mind, and if
Mhm.
not better.
Yeah, Sarah and I talk about this a lot on the podcast where you look at a whole vision, like a tablescape, and you have the wherewithal to say, that looks amazing. This I'm not in love with. But then when you're looking at a single fork, you're like, okay, like, is this fork the vibe or is it not the vibe? It's so
Yes.
hard to tell because there's no context around it. And that's really what you're doing decision after decision. You're just looking at a single linen color or a single napkin, but to
Yeah,
put the whole picture together is so critical, basically.
exactly. And truly I had the same experience. Like I was like there's so many shapes of the forks and the cutlery and there's
Yeah.
so many like shades of the golds and the metals, and I'm like I don't know what's going to look good. I mean, I
Mhm.
have good taste, but like when you're, and also there's decision fatigue, and when you're going through every little decision and you're like asked these questions and you some people have, maybe they've never put a table together, a tablescape together, like, you truly just don't know. And I think having a visual blueprint just makes the entire process 10 times easier. And not only that, on the planner side, they're spending, 15 to sometimes 25 plus hours designing one deck for a client. And truly it's to give them a sense of like what everything is going to look like together. But
Mm.
even then it's done in Canva. It's still like they've moved this, chair next to this table. Can you kind of imagine what that's going to
Envision
look
it.
like? But like, yeah, but like in this space, you're still left to like use your imagination, which is after that many hours, terrible. Like, you should
Mhm.
you should be able to see what it's all gonna look like together.
Yeah. There's a lot of discussion out in the world, and you did a recent post kind of in the same vein about the fear that AI replacing the human touch along the different journey of planning. I'm curious how does Gia empower couples to actually stay more in control and more imparting their human touch rather than distancing, or what is your thought on the AI of it all?
Yes, I have a lot of thoughts on this, as you can imagine. I would say so a few things. AI is never gonna replace the human touch. In fact, it makes it a premium, and I know this because I'm literally building a design tool, which theoretically you would think, okay, it's going to replace design because it'll just tell you what is going to look good together.
Mhm.
But there is no AI is only as good as the user that is using it because a
So
lot
true.
of what AI is about is prompting and then ask and giving it some input so that it can give you an output. If you don't know what input you're giving it, the output is never going to be that good. So, given that is the entire principle of AI, there is no way that the human design eye is going to get replaced by AI because the design eye is what now becomes the input. And that becomes a
Mhm.
premium because the people that maybe don't have it or don't trust their own design style as much or really want that expertise, the premium of having that is so important because you can layer that onto AI and get an output that you truly
Mhm.
can blow people away with and like you could never even imagine getting before. So I really believe that like there is no such thing as replacing the human eye. It only elevates it and brings it up even further.
Mhm.
Um, I think also like for couples and for users, right? AI can be a scary thing in that there is a lot of imagination that happens with AI. Imaginative AI is a real thing.
Mhm.
And the reason that it becomes then even more important to use vertically integrated AI, and when I say that, what I mean is AI built for a specific industry, is
Mhm.
because those tools understand the parameters of that space or what you're trying to get done. If you're using ChatGPT or you're using Claude or you're using Gemini to, for instance, create a tablescape, you might get something that is fine, but you also might get something that is imaginative. When you
Mhm.
use something that is vertically integrated that is built for this space, it is constrained and controlled to create with like with guardrails in mind such that
Mhm.
that hallucination or imagination and the imaginative nature of AI is reduced. It's never going to be zero. There is always going to be some rate of hallucination and imaginative nature to AI. So
Mhm.
I think we need to taper expectations and understand that like there is always going to be some percentage of that, but it is significantly reduced because when we build tools that are vertically integrated, we give them the guardrails, we give them the constraints,
Yeah.
we literally build such that the models understand like what it means to design a wedding in this venue. For example, we have venue partners on Geo. When a venue is a partner of ours, we understand the parameters of those spaces, of those venues. It's a lot of the
Yeah.
information that you would get when you're going to a venue tour and you're asking the venue, the person doing the walkthrough with you, and asking them, like, can I put, furniture in this corner? Can I put open flame candles here? Can I hang from the ceiling? If I can, what is the weight of that? Right. So,
Yeah.
like, a lot of those parameters are what then controls a product that is built for this space
100%. Yeah.
such that you are getting images that understand the space and understand design.
Yeah, that's so critical. Also, the piece about garbage in, garbage out, where I think that's a huge misconception about AI in general, which is that you give it a seed and then it gives you a whole forest. And you really have, that's going to be high quality. You really have to be specific and intentional and a savvy user of the tool. And that's really what we say at Planner too, where AI is a tool, not the solution. It's the tool
Yes.
that helps you along the way, but ultimately you're the one wielding the tool, and the person giving the inputs is going to be even more critical and necessary than ever.
Yes, but I think it's not intuitive to us as consumers because it
Yeah.
flips consumerism on its head, right? Usually we're used to being sold a solution. We're used to being sold something that solves our problems and it's tied
Mhm.
up in a bow and it's like, here's how you
Yeah.
use it. Here's an instruction manual. You do A, B, and C. This is going to turn it on and it's going to solve your problem. But
Mhm.
AI is not that. It is truly what you put into it and it's not a buttoned up solution. It is a way to get to your solution. It's a means to the output. It's a means to the solution
Mhm.
and I think that is for us as consumers and just as humans, a very different way to approach something that we use on a daily basis.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Switching gears a teensy bit into the 2026, 2027 wedding of it all. Your platform covers, every different kind of aesthetic from minimalist to moody to whimsical. I'm curious, what kind of styles are you seeing the most interest in right now? Do you see people gravitating in a certain direction, or maybe it's so regional that it's hard to kind of come up with a full orientation that's, super broad, but curious your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's actually this like decentralization of specific styles and trends. I actually think it's more so, and I think you talked about this recently, right? It's like, how do people inject their own personality and how do they inject their own style and like uniqueness in it all? And how do they stay true to their own like traditions and maybe like what makes them as a couple or as individuals? And I think
Mhm.
that like decentralizes these like very specific, like minimalist or whimsical. In fact, we've actually somewhat started moving away from that on Gia because we're seeing the ability to create such customization with these visual tools that
Yeah.
we don't need to box people into like, oh, this is your style. It's bohemian minimalist whimsical blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
Like they they can truly create something that is like so custom to them now, especially given the tools like Gia that are out there. They can say like, this is the colors, this is the textures, this is the overall like feeling that I want to have or that I want my guests to have when they walk into the room. I want it to feel cozy, I want it to feel warm, or I want it to feel like a cultural art museum, right? Like, I mean, there's so
Mhm.
many things, but like it really becomes like your imagination becomes feasible now that you can actually create a visual of that and like translate that to somebody. Before,
Mhm.
I feel like you had to put a certain style into Pinterest and like those are the images you got. And so that now is what you define as your style. And that's how you give that and hand that off to a planner. But
Mhm.
now you can create a space that is like so unique and so uniquely yours. It doesn't have to have like this label of like this is the minimalist style or like this is a whimsical blah blah blah. So I actually think it's like this decentralization of that happening, and I think that's
Mhm.
what I see happening and what I think we'll see happening more and more because the level and the ability to translate that type of customization is just becoming more and more prevalent.
Yeah, that's such an interesting insight because we're so used to the pre-AI world. You sit down at Pinterest and you have to distill, you have to label and package in order to get what you want. And that really does lead to, if someone puts in bohemian or like barn chic or something, you're going to get the same thing, and that
Yeah.
really gives you the output of a lot of the same thing and the same look. So I think there is a fear out there of, if we're all using AI to help with things, then are we all going to center around the mean and everything will look the same? But it actually opens up opportunity to be even more customized, because the way that you are describing what you want and, triggering this experience when you're in the search, we're not having to distill it down even from the beginning. It can be way
Yeah.
more open ended, which is a really cool kind of way of going about it.
Exactly. I think that's exactly right. And I always say, like, let's not have a Pinterest wedding. Let's like have our own unique look and feel of the wedding. And to do
Mhm.
that, you can truly use tools that are out there to get to visualize that and see what that's going to feel and look like. I also
Mhm.
think like this isn't, I mean, we see planners kind of faced with the same problem because, brides or couples are coming to them with like the same Pinterest photos,
Yeah.
and they're like, their portfolio ends up looking the same because they're ending up doing kind of the same wedding over and over again. It's like, I put in barn chic in my Pinterest and this is what I'm going to offer the planner. And like, that's what they end up doing. Right. And it just becomes more of the same. So like now I think we can actually get out of our own echo chamber and like begin to see all the permutations of like unique creations and unique styles come to life.
Definitely. Going back to what you were saying a little bit ago about how budget fits in, how do you feel like Gia can help users reconcile when their vibes are high end or what they're looking for is really editorial and chic, but the budget constraints might be, in their mind, keeping them from achieving that look? How do you kind of reconcile that experience?
Yeah, there are so many ways, and I think the facilitation of those conversations actually becomes a lot easier with again visual blueprints. So
Hmm.
there's so many examples, but so I should have mentioned this in the beginning, but I actually do some events myself for legacy clients still. So I have these conversations today and I use Gia to facilitate some of these budget conversations because people want to know where their dollar is going and what the output of that dollar is going to get them, right?
Yeah.
And if you can't see that, then it becomes really difficult to put the dollar down, or you feel like you've wasted money, or like something, there's like this like remorse of why did I spend that much? It didn't look the way I wanted. So where Gia or where visualization comes into play is you can start to have discussions around like, okay, if my floral is, if the florist is telling me she can do large arrangements or medium arrangements or small arrangements, well, what is that going to look like if I do five small arrangements on my king's table versus
Yeah.
five large arrangements, right? You can actually visualize that and make a decision that way. So to have the budget discussions, again, it all comes back in my mind to visualization. And
Mhm.
where Gia comes into play is like before you make a decision to purchase, you can actually see the impact of that that thing that you may be debating whether to keep on or off your invoice. And I think like specifically where it's super, super helpful is floral and like sizing of florals,
Yeah.
lighting to understand like the temperature of the room and the overall like feeling of different lighting, like whether you need that much lighting or not. And I think those are like the buckets that like definitely the budget conversation becomes a lot easier and like the decision making in the budget process becomes a lot easier. But
Mhm.
there's so many other examples that I can think of. I mean, down to every decision that you're making.
Yeah, totally. And I think there's almost at times a misconception that more is more. And if you have more, it will look better. It'll be bigger and more
Yeah.
chic, and everything will just go to 10 if you keep spending. But really, there are so many ways to have a chic, editorial, on trend, beautiful, memorable wedding using your budget in a way that is deployed as efficiently as possible. And those decisions can be, if you can see it, I think
Yeah.
you'd be way more likely to go in that direction and then ultimately be more in control of how you're spending, which is a
Yes.
win-win.
Absolutely, and you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know if you've never planned a wedding, like, do I need to have the full table covered with floral,
Mhm.
or are small arrangements okay? Like, you truly don't know that, and
Yeah.
sometimes, I mean, if someone's trying to upsell you on something, or there's, like, different packages that they're trying to get you to kind of, like, consider, it can be really you feel like you need to go for that because it's the biggest day of your life. Like you just want it to be beautiful and perfect. But I totally agree with you. Like sometimes less is more, and you don't need to fall into like someone trying to sell you a higher package or whatever the case is. And it becomes really easier to say, becomes a lot easier to say no to those things if you've
Mhm.
seen it and you feel comfortable in the look and that decision.
Yeah, totally. On your site, it mentions that you're currently in beta phase. What would you say is your kind of North Star for the platform as you're looking for the rest of 2026, or what you're really excited about for the rest of the year?
Oh, there's so much. But I would say the biggest thing is two things I would say. One is just getting planners and consumers using and getting their feedback. For us, their feedback means everything and it gives us the roadmap we need. And we truly are always saying, like, we don't want to build in a vacuum. We want to build with the people in this industry and with the couples that are planning. And in order to do that, every time we get feedback, we're literally listening to it. So that's like what I'm truly excited for is just more people using and more people giving us the feedback that we need to like keep going and making sure that we're aligned to what the needs are. Um, the other thing that I'm really excited for is again, kind of going back to this idea that planners are spending 15 to 25 hours per design deck. And that still means that consumers are most of the time using their imagination to really pull things together. Our goal is to cut that time in half for both sides of that coin and to make that process from site tour, design and full design deck and decision, like final decision, cut that time down by 50% and make that completely seamless. And
Mhm.
we still have a ways to go. We are still building. We are in beta, so we are early, but we're starting with the visualization of the space and now other visual moments, and we have a very robust roadmap that sort of like fills out the rest of that design process so that like again from site tour all the way to like final decisions and design deck, that process is cut down from hours to minutes.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely wish I could have used Gia during my
Yeah.
own wedding planning process, especially when so listeners know we eloped in Hawaii first, and then we did our giant wedding in Carmel a year later during COVID. And I remember planning for the smaller Hawaii wedding, and since we knew we'd have the bigger one later, we went like lean, kind of like bare bones enough to make it feel like this is a wedding, but we're gonna just make it as simple and streamlined as possible. But there was definitely a fear that it's gonna feel like a random backyard party rather than like a wedding. And I think floral and furniture and different decor elements put a huge are a huge role in that wedding bridal feeling. And it would have been so nice to be able to play around and understand what that visual would have looked like, especially in a place that I never had the opportunity to go to before planning. And I think a lot of
Yes.
people are doing out of state weddings, even destination weddings, where you won't get the opportunity to go to that place. And having the venue coordinator do like a FaceTime tour is like not sufficient
No.
to give you that
No.
vision, especially when it's one time at the beginning and then you are going to, go back to those photos again and again to try to really think about what that might look like. So I think
Yes.
anyone planning their wedding should go and use it.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And destination is a big use case for
Yeah.
for Gia and people that aren't able to go or aren't able to, maybe they've gone once and they can't go again. And all you need is to have a picture or an image of the space. And even if you haven't gone to it, you can oftentimes get it off a website or off,
Mhm.
ask the coordinator there to give it to you. Or if you have gone once, snap a photo on the Gia app while you're doing the site tour, and then that syncs to your desktop, and you can literally start designing before you've left the property. So,
Mhm.
it's something that like is our biggest goal. We want to make the process so simple and so easy, and just truly help people feel confident in what
Yeah.
they're deciding on and designing. And then on the other side of that coin, help planners you know, just buy back that time, like save that time and do what they do best, which is truly creating. And they can't create if they're like sitting in Canva for 15 to 25 hours, like removing backgrounds off of, a screenshot from a rental company. So,
Yeah. 100%. So here on the pod, we like to do a series of would you rather's, kind of wedding related things. So we'll do a
ooh,
little would you rather speed round, and then we'll end with a few hot takes in the wedding realm. So
okay.
first, would you rather have a monochromatic color palette, all white, that is safe but timeless, or bold, high contrast palette that's a little more out there?
Oh, I'm a bold gal. I would love bold and color. I need color in my life. I've actually struggled. I know everybody's like, "Oh, like be safe, go into neutrals, like have a neutral color, like what do they call it? The capsule wardrobe." Like I have never been somebody that's been able to do that. I love color, so definitely bold and color.
Yeah, Sarah and I debate this all the time because her wedding is in August and she got on the wildflower color train with like highly saturated
Yes.
colors, and she's just all in on it. And then as she started planning her wedding, that kind of came to the forefront of the 2026 trends, and she's like, "No, they're like by the time my wedding rolls around, people will think it's already done." But um
Oh,
we're
no.
excited for her to go
Yes.
all out, and I think it's gonna be beautiful regardless.
There's still a unique way she can do it. She needs to get on Gia.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, would you rather have massive, lush floral installation or minimalist architectural decor? Maybe I already know the answer to this.
What was the first one?
Massive, lush floral installation or minimalist architectural?
Oh, massive lush floral. Yeah, you see the trend in my responses. I
Go
love
for it.
yeah, big and like I mean, done with taste, of course, but like
Mhm,
big and bold.
mhm. Love it. Okay, stunning outdoor venue, but it requires a backup rain plan, or guaranteed indoor space, but it has zero natural light.
Oh. Uh, um well, if there's risk of rain, then indoor. My risk tolerance for that is low. I especially on your wedding day, I don't wanna have to be worried. I truly don't know how the brides that, like, take the risk to it. I mean, they do it with a backup plan, which is the best way to do it, but it is I don't know, I my nervous system is just not built for that. I need to know that we're all good.
Yeah, that was a huge reason why when we selected our wedding, location, we chose not in Seattle, which is where I'm from, because, like,
Yes.
just I mean, our summers are absolutely beautiful, it's, like, the best kept secret about Seattle, but even so, I think you'd be, like, doing a rain dance that morning, like, just in case it didn't happen, so, yeah, we chose California for that exact
Yeah,
reason, so
smart choice.
I'm on board. Okay, last few hot takes. What were your thoughts when Cloud Dancer was the Pantone color of the year?
Um,
Which
I
is
mean,
white, by the way.
good thoughts. Yeah, no, good thoughts. I Pantone colors are always like tasteful. They're never like the shade of the color that is the most like eye-hurting shade. So I feel like, yeah, it could be done well. Any shade of color could be done well if you find the right shade. Like truly it's all about like the tone and the shade of the color.
Mhm,
And what I mean by that is like, I'll have clients that'll be like, "Oh, I want pink." And like, okay, pink can be done really bad and pink can be done really well. And you have to find like the right pink and the right shade and the right other colors around it to bring out the right tones. Like, I truly think that it's just a matter of like what you put around it and the context of it. So,
yeah, that's great answer. Yeah, Sarah and I debated the Cloud Dancer for a long time, and I think the wedding world was sort of split on it. It was sort of like florals for spring, groundbreaking kinda thing, like white for weddings, I can't believe it, but then others wanted, to go saturated, go big. White has been here forever, so there was lots of
yeah,
dramatic discussion.
I I can see the conflict there. But it's unique. Like, I'm all about unique, and if it's hasn't been done before and it's different and it's unique, then find a way to make it work.
Yeah. Okay, last two hot takes. What is your favorite design trend right now and one that you are not going to be partaking in or least favorite?
Ooh. Favorite design trend and least favorite. I don't know if this is a trend necessarily, but one that I am loving and I'm actually doing for a client is like floral clouds and like hanging floral. I mean, what you just asked me about, which is funny, you asked about like massive floral installation. It's not going to be massive, but small touches of like hanging florals. I think that's like
Ooh.
so beautiful. And it adds like depth to the room and sort of some like textural elements to the room. Um, so I really like that. I'm all about ceiling installations. I feel like it like just adds the finishing touch that like a room needs because there's only so much you can do on a table and then I'm always like, well, what else can I do with the space? Ceiling. So that to me is like really fun. One that I wouldn't partake in. Honestly, there's not one that comes to mind or not one that like I feel like is an absolute no, because there's always a way that you could put a spin on it to make it work.
Mhm.
Um, I've heard people say, like, don't do, like, um, what is it? Like, the tables that kind of aren't straight, but they kinda go like like an S shape,
Mhm.
um, but I love those.
I love those
Yeah,
too. I think those are
I love
cool.
them. I think it's so cool. I think it's so different. Um, yeah, I don't know, there's not one that comes to mind. What's a trend that you wouldn't partake in or that, like, stands out to you?
I did a post a couple weeks or months ago on social media asking people, what is the skinny jean of weddings? Like, what is the millennial giveaway? Or like, what are the kids these days, the Gen Z folks saying is like the chuggy wedding thing? And the things that people came up with, I think it was mainly millennials writing in saying things because the comments were mainly like mason jars and burlap, and that was so long ago. I don't
Oh,
think that's
yeah.
even in the conversation or even relevant these days. So it was
No.
mainly the millennials coming in saying what they didn't want. But I think it is funny to look about how, I got married in 2022, our second wedding technically. And even looking back at some of our photos comparing to things now, like you can sense that things are from a certain time. And we
Mm,
talk on the pod all the time about this endless chasing of timeless being kind of a something that's perhaps not worth worrying about, because if you love it and you're psyched about it and it's
yeah,
reflective of your design aesthetic, that you should do it and not be
yeah,
worried about, is it so on trend but it's not going to look great like 20 years from now? Who
yeah.
cares? Just do it
Who
because
cares?
you like it. And
I
that's my take on timeless.
I couldn't agree more. I totally agree. I feel like, yeah, don't listen to the noise on all of that. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like that's just the pressure of like, oh, it's got to be like this or it's got to be like that. And it's the same thing with like traditions. If you don't want to do it, this tradition that is like usually done at a wedding, don't do it. Like, if you don't want to do, I don't know, couples dance, don't do it. Like, do something else. I feel like there's no right or wrong answer, right or wrong way. Truly just make it your own. It's
Mhm.
your day.
Yeah, and using Gia to make it your own allows you to really refine every little piece of that and not to
Yes.
feel stuck in a box in any capacity, whether that's
Yes.
the timeline, the different elements of the day, or the look of the day. So it's like unleash
Yes.
your creativity and just go wild, which is awesome.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
So thank you so much for being here and chatting with me. Maybe you could tell the people where they can find you and how they can check out Gia.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram and well, on Instagram at Vida down the aisle. That's VIDA down the aisle. And on Instagram on TikTok, I'm at Natasha underscore Yuhjtman. And you can find Gia on all channels at meet.gia. And also we're on, if you're looking up our website, we're meetgia.ai. And if you're a planner or a pro, there's partners.meetgia.ai. So yeah, you can find us there and check it out.
Amazing. Oh, well, thank you, Natasha. It was
Thank
so great
you.
to chat with you and do a deep
Thank
dive into all
you.
things Gia and founderhood and all that. We'll have to do a part two where we talk more about all the other things that are coming out as the year goes on. We'll keep tabs on your progress.
Exactly. And also, I don't know if we did a code, but I will make a code if you want to share a code to Gia.
Yeah,
We'll make it Plannered. Use code Plannered, and I'll you can get a discount when you're checking out at Gia.
love it. Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Hannah.
Bye.
Bye.